waiting a couple of minutes more so other participants can join, and then we will start promptly. Dr. Maruta, I can see you're with us. I just would like to check quickly your video and sound, if that's okay. Can you hear me? Dr. Maruta, I think you should have received the request to unmute. So if you can accept the request, then we can check your send. Or Wenji, otherwise please send this request.
Thank you very much. I'm now unmuted and I can hear you clearly.
Great, good to see you, Tokbo. Thanks for joining. We can hear you and see you perfectly. We'll wait for another minute or so, and we'll start then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope you can hear me and see me well. Good afternoon to everyone in Kenya and in Geneva. Good morning and evening to other participants and speakers joining us from other parts of the world. Welcome to this awareness raising event, Mobilizing Youth to Strengthen the Biological Weapons Convention in Kenya. This event today is co-organized by the Biological Weapons Convention team of the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs in Geneva and Kenya's National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, NACOSTI. Before we properly start, allow me to share some housekeeping rules for this event, and I'd like to go to the next slide, please, Wenji. Due to the large amount of participants today, your microphone is automatically muted, and you cannot unmute yourself. So please make use of the chat function to ask any question and comments you might have, and we'll make sure, me and my colleague, to monitor the chat accordingly. Another information is that this webinar will be recorded and will be made available to NACOSTI for the diffusion. Next slide, please, Wenji. In the next 2 hours, you will hear from over 10 speakers on opportunities to get involved in global biosecurity. You would have received the program as it was sent to all registered participants. You can see we have several presentations and panel discussion, which are also opportunities for you to ask questions in the chat. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers who will open the event today. We are honored to have with us Professor Walter Oyawa, the Director General of NACOSTI. Mr. Director General, you have the floor. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I was the unmute button. You can hear me now?
We can hear you well, Professor, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. The Chief of the BWC Implementation Support Unit, Mr. Daniel Fix, and the entire wonderful team of BWC ISU. Our chief guest in the closing ceremony, Professor Paul Wanaina, that is when he joins us. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Tokmo Maruta of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Eminent panelists and presenters, youngsters coming from all over Kenya, my colleagues who have made this very successful. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm indeed most delighted to give these opening remarks on this great occasion, specifically designed for the youth in Kenya. I would want to let you know that I'm speaking from Abuja, Nigeria, where I'm also attending an important regional function. Hence, bear with me should you find that my English is confusing or a little bit distorted. I've had to learn some local dialects at the moment. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this workshop is bringing on board a good number of the youth. I'm seeing they're almost approaching 100 as of now. And for this reason, allow me to first and foremost thank the BWC Implementation Support Unit of UNODA under the superb leadership of Mr. Daniel for accepting to partner with us in organizing this very important event on mobilizing youth to strengthen the Biological Weapons Convention in Kenya. I also extend my sincere gratitude to my senior colleague at NACOSTI, Dr. Marion Sarigo, and Mr. Remy of BWC Implementation Support Unit. I think you have all seen him. They have done a marvelous work. For mine, I was seeing communications going to and fro. It's a lot of work to be able to organize this kind of meeting, and I can see the numbers are increasing now over 100. So this is a great work, and Remy and Dr. Sarigo deserves commendation. Yeah, distinguished participants, the importance of this workshop cannot be overemphasized. Taking note or taking cognizance of two major current happenings around the world, namely the first one is the severe impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on human lives, on global security and harmony, and also on economic well-being of mankind or humanity. The second happening is the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which seems to have far-reaching severe geopolitical and socioeconomic impact. And I think it's affecting each one of us around the world, probably in Kenya. As for my case, I just as an example, I had ordered for some construction materials, and suddenly I was told the prices had escalated considerably. And when I asked the shopkeeper, it was go and ask Ukraine and Russia. So all these two key things are affecting us in one way or another, and they have a direct bearing on Biological Weapons Convention, in that in these two historical global events that I've just mentioned, that is the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, matters of biological weapons have come up to the fore and remain unanswered or unresolved. Additionally, their impacts on the youth all around the world, including Kenya, or undesirable involvement of the youth is of great concern to all of us. Therefore, this virtual workshop comes at an opportune time with the key objective of creating awareness and networking on biosafety and biosecurity among youth as the next generation champions and leaders. Distinguished participants, the workshop is indeed a call to action for youth in Kenya to mobilize their strength, their patriotism, their aspirations, their vision, to be part of the unique and emerging field of the next generation of biosecurity professionals to the Biological Weapons Convention community. To this end, participants are informed, and I think Daniel and the BWC team will mention this. Participants are informed that the Youth Declaration for Biosecurity was recently launched in the margins of the BWC meeting of state parties in November 2021. I think Kenya participated in this meeting. And in that Youth Declaration for Biosecurity, there are 8 recommendations in the Youth Declaration. Due to limited time, I'll just mention 3. And one of them is that the Youth Declaration for Biosecurity recommends the creation of clear pipeline for biosecurity career advancement. This is important discussion, and I'm happy my colleagues at Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology are picking this up, and we believe the other universities will also find this of interest. And also another declaration is that the declaration recommends increasing biosafety and biosecurity awareness. I believe that is why we are here today with a good number of the youth around the country, and we hope they will be able to pick up this matter, which is currently happening. unlike the normal teachings, which could be historical. This is live. The Matters of Biological Weapons Convention is live, is happening around the world, as has been provoked by the COVID pandemic. And then the third in the recommendation, out of the 8 in the Youth Declaration, is that there is need for the building of national and regional capacity to rapidly prevent, detect, report, and respond to unusual infectious diseases and outbreaks. You may be able to Google this, I think, in the BWC website to see the significant contribution of the youth on matters biological weapons convention. The Declaration for Biosecurity contains policy recommendations from young leaders to support your participation in global biosecurity. So please take advantage of this to read what is in the BWC website. I believe Daniel will give some more insights on this. So participants, Kenya has been steadfast in demonstrating a commitment to the Biological Weapons Conventions since acceding to the convention on the 7th January 1976. Kenya was indeed among the earliest nations to accede to the convention, and as part of conforming to the requirements of the convention, Kenya has been promptly submitting a report of its confidence-building measures to BWC Implementation Support Unit. This is done annually through the National Focal Point or Contact Point. And at this moment, the National Commission for Science and Technology, the Director General, is the one designated as the National Focal Point for matters BWC. Currently, I would also, and indeed I'm very pleased to inform the youngsters here that our very own and very former Cabinet Secretary or Minister, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Cleopa Mailu, is the chairperson of the 2020 meeting of states parties. He has demonstrated extraordinary leadership and skill during these very difficult times of COVID-19 pandemic, bringing parties together. It has not been easy. I witnessed it in November during the meeting of state parties. It was not easy. And Daniel, as a secretariat, is aware of his great leadership skills that he has demonstrated. So Kenya is at the forefront in matters of BWC, and we want our youth, whether in research institutions, whether in universities, whether in ministries, departments, and agencies, to pick up on these very important matters. I also want to inform that we had a very strong delegation in November, Kenyan delegation to the meeting of state parties in November. This meeting was led by none other than our principal secretary in the State Department for University Education and Research, Ambassador Simon Nabukwesi. During this meeting, through the kind arrangements of Daniel and team, and especially Mr. Alex, we were able to meet a number of delegations. We met delegations from the USA, side meetings, bilateral meetings, delegation from USA, from UK, from Canada, Netherlands, the European Union, even from UNICRI. And this is one of the reasons that we have this meeting, that we hope the meetings that we have and we are going to have again maybe in the next 2 weeks will be able to lead to some bilateral or multilateral engagements in terms of research, in terms of collaborations, in terms of creating awareness. So we really encourage the youth to pick up on some of these engagements or connections that we are making. It is our hope that your institutions or our institutions will take up these opportunities to enhance human capacity building, to establish undergraduate training on biosecurity, leading to what we will call as the first generation of biosecurity professionals. As I close my remarks, I just want also to mention that even as we speak, a high-powered Kenyan delegation has been established to attend the preparatory meeting of the 9th Review Conference in Geneva, which commences from 4th to 11th of April. This probably will be the largest ever Kenyan delegation to the BWC, and I'm pleased to inform Daniel and team that as of now, I think it's a team comprising almost 20 top-level government officers, including 7 CEOs from CALRO, from KEFRI, from the National Museums of Kenya, from National Biosafety Authority, of course, from NACOSTI, and also we're expecting 2 vice chancellors of top universities to join in this meeting. So about 20 from various sectors, from the NIS, the ministry, the Kenya Bureau of Standards. So this is how Kenya has put matters of biological weapons convention at the forefront. And we hope Daniel will assist us to connect with various partners because one of the reasons Kenya's borders are quite delicate, as we are all aware. They're quite delicate. What is happening outside our borders or close to our borders is a very complex situation. And we thought we need to take preemptive measures or proactive measures in ensuring that we are safe rather than wait. So with those remarks, I thank you all for sparing some time to be part of this timely workshop. Thank Remy, thank Dr. Sarigo, thank Daniel as the head of the team, which has supported us very strongly, and wish you the very best. Thank you very much. Back to you, Remy. Thank you.
Many thanks, Professor Oyawa, for your remarks, and we are looking forward to receiving a Kenyan delegation in Geneva in some weeks now, in a week. Thank you, and I'm pleased now to introduce Mr. Daniel Fix, the Chief of the Biological Weapons Convention Implementation Support Unit, for his opening remarks. Daniel, over to you.
Thanks very much, Remy, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to colleagues joining the meeting as well. Professor Oyawa, Vice Chancellor, Professor Wainana, distinguished speakers, dear young scientists, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Biological Weapons Convention Implementation Support Unit here in Geneva, I would like to welcome you all to this awareness-raising event on the Biological Weapons Convention for youth in Kenya. I think we're all from our side really excited to see so many people here in this meeting as well, and really grateful for you all for the organization of this event as well. Let me first of all express my appreciation to the National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, to NACOSTI, for organizing this important event today. Your team, Mr. Director General, has done an incredible job at mobilizing so many young scientists over the country today. Real congratulations to you and all of your colleagues there. This event today takes place in the context of a broader collaboration between Kenya and the Implementation Support Unit that Professor Oyawa has already referred to. The cooperation stems from the strong commitment of the Kenyan authorities to implement the convention at the national level. The cooperation between us in Geneva here and Kenya was further strengthened 2 years ago when Ambassador Cleopa Mailu, Kenya's permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, took on the chairmanship of the 2020 meeting of states parties, as Professor Oyawa was just describing, and we enjoyed a really good and really close collaboration with Ambassador Mailu over those past 2 years as well, and his chairmanship last November of the meeting of states parties. And since then, Kenya has further consolidated its place as a real regional leader in BWC implementation. The implementation of the Biological Weapons Convention would not be complete without engaging all forces of society. Among them, youth have a special role and should be given a voice in global biosecurity. Today's event, therefore, seeks to empower your generation to take transformative roles in biosecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, the Biological Weapons Convention is at an important crossroads. Two intersecting developments have made the strengthening of the biosecurity regime critical. First, as Professor Oyawa has already mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that diseases can cross borders, spread rapidly around the world, and cause devastating social, political, and economic harm. A disease deliberately engineered to spread more rapidly and cause more death would imply an even greater threat yet. This is why all possible measures must be taken to prevent future pandemics, including the deliberate use of disease as a weapon. Secondly, advances in biological science and technology are occurring at an unprecedented and increasing pace. While these bring many benefits for humanity, life sciences are often dual use and can cause harm if misused. The BWC community needs to consider such developments as they may enable the acquisition and use of biological weapons. Against this background, the contribution of young scientists to strengthening the global norm against biological weapons has therefore never been so important. So why does the Biological Weapons Convention need youth, and what can you do? First, the convention needs you because preventing future pandemics and promoting advances in the life sciences will impact on your future. We need a young generation to lead tomorrow's solutions to biosecurity challenges. Secondly, the BWC needs you because you're the most fluent generation with emerging technologies, and you also bring new perspectives, fresh eyes on old issues. You can help us to find solutions. And third, the BWC needs you because young scientists make up for a large part of biosecurity and biosafety practitioners in universities, laboratories, and industries. Your ground level perspective is important to policymakers to strengthen biosecurity frameworks. As for the second question, what can you do? The objective of this event is to give you some answers. However, allow me to share with you 3 overarching recommendations. You can use your voices. You know things that policymakers don't. You have valuable ideas. Always be a voice for positive change and don't hesitate to speak out. You can use international networks. Today's event aims at introducing you to some of them. Global youth-led networks have a transformative role to play on global issues. And you can also be a multiplier. Many speakers today were in your place just a few years ago, and they're now BWC and biosecurity champions. I encourage you to also be advocates in your own countries and regions to bolster global capacities against the misuse of biological agents. Over the past few years, the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs has placed youth engagement and empowerment at the core of its activities. To increase youth participation under the Biological Weapons Convention, our office has developed the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative that Professor Oyawa just mentioned, and with the continued sponsorship of the European Union. Today's event falls under the umbrella of this initiative, which is really a network of youth networks that you are all very welcome to join one way or another. That's why we've gathered today over 10 speakers to share tangible opportunities to get involved. We hope that today's event is the beginning of your engagement for responsible science and innovation under the Biological Weapons Convention. I'm not going to take up any more of your time now, but I just wanted to repeat my thanks to you for your participation in this event today. Thank you to NACOSTI and to all of the expert speakers who have made themselves available today. Thank you all for your attention, and back to you, Remy.
Many thanks, Daniel, for your opening remarks and already your recommendations to youth. We'll hear more on that in the next presentations. And next, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Tokmo Maruta. Dr. Maruta is with the African Centers for Disease Control and Surveillance. He is a Senior Biosafety and Biosecurity Officer, and he has kindly accepted to join us today to deliver some keynote remarks on youth engagement in biosecurity and biosafety in Africa. Thank you very much, Dr. Maruta, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. On behalf of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the organizers of this meeting, the government of Kenya, together with NACOSTI, and many of the other agencies and speakers that have joined us today on this very important meeting. It is indeed a great honor for us as Africa CDC to participate and speak on this very important meeting, a meeting that is looking into the future, a meeting that recognizes that our future is actually in our youths of today. Before I proceed, allow me to write on the existing protocol that has already been mentioned. I also had the privilege to address a similar meeting, I think it was a week or so ago, again organized by the office by United Nations Office for Disarmament with the Biological Weapons Convention Implementation Support Unit. And today, I will share with you the similar remarks that I gave at that time, because I think they also apply given that we are addressing a very important critical component for strengthening our biosafety and biosecurity in the region, as well as ensuring compliance to the BWC, which is speaking an inclusion of our youth today. Let me begin by giving a very short introduction of the Africa CDC Biosafety and Biosecurity Program. In 2019, Africa CDC, in collaboration with the African Union member states, as well as its regional and international partners, came together and launched what they called the Africa CDC Biosafety and Biosecurity Initiative. This initiative's main goal is really to strengthen the biosecurity and biosecurity systems of our African Union member states, such that they can be given the capacity to comply with many of the international regulations including the BWC that brings us today, the International Health Regulations, IHR of 2005, also the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540, as well as the multi-country global health action packages. Based on the consultative process that Africa CDC conducted between 2019 and 2021, we then compiled and published the capacity gaps that were highlighted by member states, which we published a year ago. You can look for this on the internet. You should be able to access it. Now, based on these capacity gaps that were indicated by member states, Africa CDC then coordinated the development of a 5-year biosafety and biosecurity strategic plan, which is running from 2021 to 2025. And this strategic plan was developed mostly to guide and coordinate implementation among member states and the many partners that assist and work with us in this region. In this strategic plan, as Africa CDC, we were very conscious of the need to ensure that the youths are inspired to follow the path of biosafety and biosecurity as a career in the profession. I'll share a little bit more on this, but for now, let me take a step back and take a moment to address you on the need to keep the youth engaged in biosafety and biosecurity and the implementation of the Biological Weapons Convention. It has already been said and also known that a nation without productive youths is actually a nation without hope. And where you have a nation without hope, it is a nation without a future. Now, this indeed is very true, given that we have over 1.8 billion young people in the world today. And 90% of these live in developing countries like us here in Africa, where they tend to make a much larger proportion of the population. Based on this, it will become a very futile exercise if we proceed without the inclusion of the youth in all our processes, our policies, and our programming. Now, the world free of biological weapons cannot be achieved without the youth included in the dialogue, given that they also make a great and bigger, a significant proportion of the population, and they are our future leaders, which we need to engage early in their life. Now, at the African Union and Africa CDC, we also have a long history of recognizing the youth as our future. At the Africa, we have what we call the Africa Union Youth Volunteer Corps Program, which was launched in Abuja in 2010. And this youth program is a continental development program that recruits and works with youth volunteers who are dispatched and work in over 54 countries across the Africa Union region. This program is a deliberate effort to recognize that the participation of youth is key to the delivery of the Africa's human development targets and goals that were set, including in the Agenda 263, the Africa we want. For those that are interested, you can look for this Africa Youth Volunteer Corps program on the Africa Union website. It will ask you to submit your details, your application forms, the CVs, and together with many of the implementing agencies that work in the Africa Union region, in the areas of economics, in the areas of peace and security, in the areas of logistics, as well as public health. These youth are then combined and assigned to these agencies who will work on the deployment of the youths across the region. For the youths that are here, I encourage you to submit your details for this opportunity. Now, when you also look at the Africa CDC new public health order, which was launched by our director, Dr. John Kenkason, it focuses on 6 areas, of which one of these is on the development of a public health workforce. And through its programs like the Young African Public Health Scholars Program, which was also launched way back in 2018, is a deliberate effort that deliberately targets young scientists as it develops them into future public health professionals. These deliberate efforts, ladies and gentlemen, are true to the fact that the future promise of any nation can be directly measured by the present prospects of its youth today. We therefore need to start investing in our youth. We need to start involving our youth today. Us as current leaders, we have this obligation to do so is to create more and more opportunities for our youth to be involved. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is it particularly important to engage the youth specifically in biosafety and biosecurity? I'll share with you two main points relating to this. Firstly, we all agree that advance in technology is increasingly becoming central to the ever-increasing biosafety and biosecurity threats. In today's world, you cannot separate the youth from the rapid expansion in technology. I always laugh when I am stuck with any technology. I always go to my son and say, help me here, help me here. Because the youth of today and technology go hand in hand. Therefore, such advances in biotechnology, which can at some point be misused, we therefore need to start engaging our youth today in this. Their involvement and perspectives are actually needed to create the innovative solutions that we need for us to have a safe and secure future, a future that has we don't have deliberate misuse of such technologies, but rather put them to better use, including pathogen economics, which is an emerging principle in our societies today. Secondly, there is need to prepare our youth for our future. A safe, as I've said, a safe and secure future depends on our youth. Now, when we look at recent events like the terrorist attacks, the wars that are there, the chemical and biological wars that we are currently experiencing, they require not only diplomatic skills, but they also need a firm and grounded understanding and foundation in biosafety and biosecurity. Hence, an understanding of what it takes to guard against activities that promote development of such misuse of biological weapons is an understanding that needs to be built over time. We therefore need to engage the youth now as future diplomats, as future negotiators, as future guardians to ensure that there's no misuse of such technology advances, as well as misuse of some of the pathogens and agents we have as biological weapons. Now, fellow colleagues, so the question is, what is it that we need to do now? I'm happy in the opening remarks, some of these things have already been mentioned. Firstly, we need to develop clear career and professional paths for biosafety and biosecurity to entice our youth to join these paths. It is rather very unfortunate that very few national programs today, as we speak, focus on biosafety and biosecurity. Now, as at Africa Cdc, we have taken a deliberate effort to turn biosafety and biosecurity into a professional program. Very soon, Africa Cdc will be launching a regional training and certification program for biosafety and biosecurity professionals in the Africa region. This training and professional program is looking at 4 specialized areas in biorisk management, management of high containment facilities, servicing and equipment of biological safety cabinets, as well as biological waste management. As you would know, this is a clear step from our end and from our efforts to deliberately move towards creating career paths for biosafety and biosecurity in the region, and also turning biosafety and biosecurity into a professionally recognized program that we can start attracting our youth to follow. I am also pleased to note that Kenya is among the countries in the Africa region that are actually looking at establishing degree and post-degree programs in biosafety and biosecurity. A few weeks last week, in one of our technical working groups for biosafety and biosecurity for East Africa, we had Mr. James Sakwa, whom I've seen on this call, presenting on the efforts that are currently going on at their university of coming up with a professional training program on biosafety and biosecurity. Now, secondly, our policies must, at national level and regional level, set the ground rules that promote the intervention that involve the youth in biosafety and biosecurity. For example, I know in 2019, the United Nations Office for Disarmament have a Youth for Disarmament initiative. In 2017, the Nuclear Threat Initiative had the Next Generation for Biosecurity competition. I also know that the International Federation for Biosafety Association in 2019, they introduced what they call the Global Mentorship Program. All these are, among others, are initiatives with a strong bias towards our youth. These efforts, most importantly, need to be supported by policy. Now, at Africa CDC, we are currently developing a regional biosafety and biosecurity legislative framework. Among its 7 domains, 7 articles that are in this framework, Domain 5 looks at education, training, and human resource requirements for personnel who possess, who use, who store, or transfer agents and toxins of concern. Now, under this domain, member states will be required to develop formal training programs, both in the pre as well as in service. Now, when you look at the pre-service, this is where we are targeting our young scientists, targeting our young youths, so that we catch them whilst they're still young and ensure that they follow clear career paths in biosafety and biosecurity. Now, these training programs, we will be developing them, working together with institutions of higher learning within our member states. Now, there's more that we can do to our youth today in order that we can have a safe and secure world. Let me finish by just leaving you with a few inspiring words. Aristotle once said, good habits are formed at youth, and when they are formed at youth, they make all the difference for the rest of the coming future. So the time to engage our youth is now. We need to cultivate the culture of guarding against promoting proliferation of and use of their affinity for technology to develop, to prevent it from having them to use it to develop biological weapons. It is also said that the failure to invest in the youth reflects a lack of compassion and a colossal failure of common sense. Hence, we need to ensure that our youths are supported and encouraged by governments, encouraged by private sector, encouraged by society to ensure that we drive them and pull them and entice them towards this area of biosafety and biosecurity. It is therefore our duty as the senior citizen, as the current leadership, to make them believe in themselves and in the future. I would like to take this moment to close by wishing you a successful awareness and raising meeting for the Biological Weapons Convention for Kenya. Stay safe and thank you very much. Back to you, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maruta, for your inspiring remarks and already providing some leads for opportunities for youth engagement in the region. We have been mentioning before, since the start of this event, Kenyan youth and young scientists, and I'm very happy that we've reached now our first panel discussion, and we'll hear from Kenyan young scientists. So this first discussion of the day will focus on the challenges and opportunities for young scientists in the life science in Kenya. And we're very happy to have with us for this discussion 2 recent alumni of the 3rd edition of the Youth for Biosecurity workshop, which was mentioned earlier, and which just ended last week. So with that fresh knowledge, we'll look into our panelists' own journey into global biosecurity and their experience with the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative. I'm pleased to introduce Mrs. Marion and Jerry Washira. So she is from the 2022 cohort of the Youth for Biosecurity workshop, and she's currently an intern at NACOSTI. We also have with us Mrs. Lydia Semba Eyase, also from the 2022 cohort, and she is a senior research scientist and quality assurance officer at Kenyan Medical Research Institute Diagnostic and Laboratory Systems Program. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to start with a question on your own journey. And before doing that, I also encourage the audience to ask questions in the chat if they have some question. So the first question would be, how and why did you get involved in global biosecurity and in the BWC in particular? If you can tell us a bit of about your journey. I'd like to start with you, Lydia, if that's okay. Over to you. I think you're still muted. Let me just. Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lydia Ayase. As you have heard, I'm a research scientist at the Kenya Medical Research Institute. And my interest for biosecurity started early in my career when I was part of a team that successfully applied to the Sub-Saharan Africa Biosafety and Biosecurity Grant in 2012. And we succeeded to secure a $10,000 grant that featured a state-of-the-art biosafety and biosecurity system in the BSL-3 animal lab at that time. And ever since that time, I've always looked for an opportunity to plug into the field, and I became a member of the Global Outbreak and Alert Response Network, which gave me a platform to practice biosafety and biosecurity, especially in outbreak response. I also became a trainer of trainers in risk management and biosafety and biosecurity, and that also gave me a platform to mentor others in the field and to also train other people. Now, one of the good things that COVID-19 pandemic has brought is biotechnological advances. And when we're talking about this, we talked about the advances in DNA sequencing that we're experiencing in Kenya right now. Many institutions of higher learning and research have acquired or are in the process of acquiring a sequencing machine. And even as you look in the internet, there are several opportunities to train in sequencing and bioinformatics. And that has, in fact, in the last 2 years, I've attended more trainings in this than I've ever attended before. So these have introduced, these developments have introduced risk in for dual use research. And consequently, there have been an increase in discussions around BWC, biosafety, and biosecurity. And in such a discussion, I came to know about BWC workshop, and I applied to it, and I was glad to be accepted. And last week, as it has been alluded before, I participated in the 3rd edition of the workshop. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lydia. And I think that your experience is probably one that is shared by many in the audience today. I'd like now to turn to you, Marion. If you can also give us your own experience. Why did you get involved in global biosecurity? How did you do it? And yeah, what you can tell us about your journey. Over to you.
Thank you, Remy. Hello, everyone. My name is Marion Washira, as you've heard. I'm an industrial chemist by profession. I'm currently a full-time student at the University of Nairobi, undertaking my Master's of Science in Industrial Chemistry. I was an intern until recently at NACOSTI, and it's through NACOSTI that I got to learn of the BWC. Before that, I'd be very honest, I wasn't aware of it, and I think that puts to light the importance of such workshops as this one. So I was an intern at NACOSTI, and that's where I encountered the BWC. I worked closely with Dr. Marion Sarigo, and it's through that I realized as a life scientist, even as a chemist, my research work at the university, my research work at the university is multidisciplinary. It cuts across the life sciences, and I think it's important that life scientists get to be aware of the impacts their research could have on society, both positive and negative. We mostly concentrate on the positive naturally, but awareness of what it could, what impacts the research can have on society negatively makes one be aware and be able to avert such impacts. I think even knowledge of the BWC and other conventions helps, I think, all young scientists conduct research in a very responsible and mindful way. So that is what pushed me. The fact that I didn't have so much information on BWC, I really wanted to know so much on this specific field on biosecurity, and that is what made me apply when the opportunity came. And thankfully, I got the opportunity to participate in the third edition of the Biosecurity and Diplomacy Workshop. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayo. And yes, this is interesting as well. I think many other scientists like you who do not have any background on the BWC itself have an interest in global biosecurity, especially now with the convergence between different fields of science and technology, which are also in some ways relevant to the future of the biosecurity regime. You both mentioned your involvement in the Youth for Biosecurity workshop over the past months. I was wondering whether you could tell the audience a bit more about the process when you applied and then the different sessions you had. What was your feeling, what you preferred, and maybe give some tips maybe to the audience in case they also want to get involved in the future. Lydia, if we can start with you again, over to you.
Okay, my experience at the BWC workshop was very informative. All along, I've been looking for a way to plug into biosecurity, having worked in a level 3 lab for a long time. And this was a great opportunity. I got to meet people who, with a background in education like mine, could project their careers towards biosafety and biosecurity initiatives like policy making, academia. Yeah, and there were even some that started their own initiatives, like we'll hear here today, later on, like SynBio. Like there are so many opportunities that are available for the youth. And it was interesting to me that I saw the opportunity for me to move from life science and research into biosafety and biosecurity. Yeah, I think that was the biggest highlight for me from the workshop. Thank you.
Thanks, Lydia. Mario, do you want to take that one as well? Let me unmute you. Yeah. You're still muted. Here you go.
Okay. I'm very glad to share my experience actually. As I've mentioned, my background is not in biology related course, but getting to that platform was actually quite eye-opening for me, because it was mostly a learning experience for me throughout throughout the workshop, the 5 sessions. I got to learn about the impact of the civil society. That was also a highlight. Something else that really was interesting was that most people there have already gone ahead in their education background, either undertaking their PhDs or already have their PhDs, and that was quite a challenge for me, who's just almost completing my master's. I felt challenged and motivated even more to advance. The networks created during the workshop, I believe, are going to be very instrumental in the coming time when it comes to just sharing ideas, because most of the problems when it comes to biosecurity and youth involvement, they're not isolated. They're not, you can't say Kenyan the problems are just, they cut across so many of the participating nations. So yeah, that was also, I look forward to networking with the participants of the workshop. Yes, and also learning of the existing opportunities that are there for youth in life science generally. I like what the Africa CDC is doing, engaging and to the extent of certifying so that you can have proof. Yeah, that was quite a highlight for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that indeed we, in the workshop, we had younger participants in their master degree and other participants with already a PhD. And this is also the value of the network, having different young scientists at different stages in different fields as well of science and technology to exchange ideas, perspectives, and collaborate. As you mentioned, some collaboration is already being developed from this network. Great. Another question that I'd like to ask you, and I think it is of interest for the audience. It's a question that's been mentioned, an element that's been mentioned already by our previous speakers, but based on your experience within the workshop during the past 6 weeks, why do you think that the BWC concerns the young scientist? Why do you think that the young scientists have a role to play under the BWC? Lydia, would you like to start?
Okay, first of all, I believe it's often not the lack of policies that is the problem, but the implementation of the policies. And according to the 2019 Kenyan population census, 75% of Kenyans are actually youth. So I believe these are the biggest implementers to these policies. Yeah, and involving the youth to give their perspectives and interpretations, especially about dual use of research, and also highlight the challenges they're facing in biosafety and biosecurity in their workspaces. Help the policymakers to craft these policies in such a way that they're easily to implement. Yeah, and the youth have a lot of ideas. Like you will listen to other stakeholders today, like the IGM representative. I know will talk about the ideas that youth, for example, have ever presented in their competitions, and you will, with the advancement in biotechnology, you will realize that there are lots of possibilities for dual use of research, but then the youth have no education in these areas. So it is important for the youth to be included and to be educated about the possibility of their ideas to be used for dual use research so that they can craft and tailor their ideas in a way that they cannot be misused. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, you make a very good point on the implementation challenge. This is one of the challenge of the convention, indeed, and one for which youth are much needed. Marion, your take on this question?
I think it's important that the youths are included in this discussion, considering, first of all, a big percentage of the people on ground. Lydia is a good example, as someone already in the field, are actually young people already in the field of research, medical research, graduate students doing research, people in public health. Majority are actually young people. And these are the people who understand the challenges that they're actually going through at the ground level. So it's important, because now when policies are being formulated, it's important that youth actually make an input, because they're the ones facing all the challenges. At the same time, when such a thing such as COVID-19 happens, a pandemic of such, the effects and like Lydia said, most of Kenya's population is actually youth. So the effect that comes out of such a pandemic affects the youth more than any other population group. So that brings to light why it is important, why youth should have a say. Youth should actually engage. They should be engaged when it comes to matters of safety and biosecurity. Yeah.
Thank you very much, both of you. And I like to close the panel conversation on this point, very point that youth need to be engaged, and our following presentations will I think bring answers on how it's possible. But thanks both of you for sharing your experience with the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative. This is one of the way that you can get involved in global biosecurity under the BWC. So yes, keep tuned for more opportunities in the future under this initiative. We just finished the 2022 workshop, but there will be more opportunities for you to get involved. So thank you very much, Lydia and Mario, for your participation today. It was a pleasure to see you again after the workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on, we welcome 3 speakers to introduce us to an exciting project taking place actually in Kenya to develop the biosecurity and biosafety profession. And I'm delighted to introduce our 3 speakers. We have Mrs. Stephanie Norlock with us. She is a program officer at the International Federation of Biosafety Associations, Ifba. We also have with us Dr. Patrick Okanya. He is a lecturer of biochemistry at the Technical University of Kenya and an adjunct faculty at the School of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. We also have with us Mr. James Sakwa. He is the Principal Medical Laboratory Scientist and Quality Assurance Coordinator at the Quality Assurance for Biosafety and Biosecurity Coordinator at the Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology in Kenya. Thanks you 3 for being with us, and with no further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Remy. I will just get right into it, and thank you so much for the absolute privilege to present today along with my esteemed colleagues, as well as for the great introduction provided by Dr. Maruta at the beginning of this session today. As Remy mentioned, my name is Stephanie Norlock, and I am the International Federation of Biosafety Associations Program Officer, or the IFBA's Program Officer. And as a young scientist and policy professional myself, I'm very pleased to introduce the IFBA's new shared priority of formally cultivating the biosafety and biosecurity profession across the world, but specifically starting this initiative in East Africa and Kenya. And so this includes an anticipated dedicated undergraduate degree program in biosafety and biosecurity. And I'll also be speaking a little bit about, at the end, other initiatives which support the human elements of biosafety and biosecurity policy implementation, such as local peer-to-peer mentorship. So the International Federation of Biosafety Associations is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization whose secretariat office is based in Ottawa, Ontario, but in Canada, but is an international organization of 47 member national and regional biosafety associations across the world. And member associations are joined by a number of like-minded observer organizations, which include the BWC ISU, as well as the World Health Organization, along as many others. And whether at the laboratory bench or in policy and decision-making roles, the professionals that compose our federation greatly shape their countries, their regions, and global biosafety and biosecurity landscapes, as well as its workforce. So I would like to kind of further discuss that today, a little bit of the workforce aspect. So as I mentioned, I am a young professional in biosafety and biosecurity myself, and a young scientist. And it's been extremely interesting to begin my career within a few years of the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has greatly impacted Canada's, which is where I live and work, as well as the global biosafety and biosecurity landscape. And I'm sure that each of you in Kenya and abroad have your own respective experiences similar to that. And the pandemic has resulted in the need to rapidly increase laboratory staff for processing COVID-19 samples, resulting in a considerable number of conversations considering capacity, sustainability, and ultimately the safe, secure, and effective functioning of these diagnostic systems. And that's not to say that these conversations are not also being had about many of the other infectious diseases that we are controlling across regions. And as the capacity limits of these systems have been tested under the duress of the pandemic, it must be noted that historical laboratory incident notification data on laboratory exposures and incidents indicate the most incidents being caused by human factors. So a little bit more specifically, the most common occurrence type in this regard has been procedural, where reported issues involved human interactions, human errors, and standard operating procedures. And so this is in contrast to other issues caused by physical facility design, equipment, and other engineering controls. And so these kind of standard operating procedures, professional competency, I refer to these as human elements, and they're a considerable point of focus when considering how we educate, train, and otherwise cultivate the next generation of biosafety and biosecurity professionals under the newly distributed risk assessment approach, which is a central theme to the World Health Organization's 4th edition Laboratory Biosafety Manual. So, indeed, there's been a considerable amount of moving and shaking in the biosafety and biosecurity profession in the last while, as has been discussed in the last presentations and panel, whether it be widespread discussion and implementation of the risk assessment approach or how the pandemic has impacted the existing and emerging workforce as a whole. And although largely invisible as an accessible career path, biosafety and biosecurity has been thrown to the forefront in this respect for the first time for my own generation and many of you tuning in today. And as I mentioned, there's very little opportunity to get involved as youth in STEM fields. And biosafety and biosecurity, as we can all agree, are indispensable components of laboratories, which many STEM students anticipate spending much of their professional lives in, but it's critically underrepresented in historical STEM curricula. And so as such, students are propelled toward more visible career paths, and biosafety and biosecurity specialists are not sustainably cultivated at the regional or global level. So it's proposed at this point in time that there is a great opportunity to achieve a higher degree of formalization of the biosafety and biosecurity profession as a dedicated career path, encouraging the continuous development of local, regional, national biosafety and biosecurity specialists over the long term. This is a significant part of the IFBA's Vision of Tomorrow, a new 5-year strategic plan that's been developed following a survey from our global community, including our member associations in East Africa, IFBA certified professionals, and other key stakeholders around the world on priority actions. And we received 80 responses from 33 countries. And key qualitative results from the survey envisioning a global future for biosafety and biosecurity as a profession included explicit conversations surrounding the next generation of biosecurity professionals and biosafety professionals. And these statements don't only reflect what further formalization and cultivation of the biosafety profession, what it may do to serve the next generation, but also this one as well. Biosafety and biosecurity should be considered distinct practices under the STEM umbrella, and expertise should be regarded with similar weight as other disciplines in this regard, such as microbiology, medical laboratory sciences, etc. And this will enable subject matter experts to more easily achieve robust communication between professionals respectively responsible for policy and practice of biosafety and biosecurity, avoiding an often experienced implementation gap between effective policy design and implementation. So as such, the IFBA's formal collaboration with Masinde Muliro University, as well as other key partners such as the Technical University of Kenya, NACOSTI in Kenya, the University of Health and Allied Sciences in Tanzania, and technical assistance provided by the University of British Columbia, form a cogent response to this expressed need from the global community. I'm very pleased to also note that another member of our technical committee is sitting in today, Mary from NACOSTI. Thank you so much for helping host this session. Today, these partners technical experts have formed the IFBA's Biosafety and Biosecurity Profession Technical Committee, which will design and implement a specialized undergraduate degree program in biosafety and biosecurity at MMUST as a pilot project. Students specialize in this discipline after 2 years in a core life sciences program, and the first cohort is aimed to begin their studies in September 2022. And to speak a little bit more on MMUST's work in this project, as well as the contributions of the Technical University of Kenya, I'm very pleased to introduce my esteemed colleagues, Mr. James Sakwa of MMUST, as well as Dr. Patrick Okenya at the Technical University of Kenya. Thank you, James and Patrick, for joining us today, with James coming up first.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Greetings to everybody. Indeed, I'm very pleased to be here, and my role is to share with colleagues and the young scientists working in University of Science and Technology, and I must give some little background based on the fact that one of our core values as a university is customer focus and innovativeness. So at the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, it found us on the go. It found us on the go because we look at the situation in the industry, which is the health industry, in diagnostics, look at skills and opportunities that we could leverage and make our graduates very, very competitive. So when we realized that the country had developed a biorisk management curriculum, we took it up and started engaging our students off the normal curriculum schedule, whereby they do what they're supposed to do in terms of testing in the course of the curriculum. And then when they are done, we continue impacting the skills that are relevant for them, so that when they graduate, they can be engaged as biorisk managers. So since the inception of our program in the university, we have always had a joint courses at bachelor's level and diploma. And we have been having a course that majorly is on fundamentals of biosafety and biosecurity. And this is taught to students of medical lab science and those of medical biotechnology. And I have to say that our faculty is composed of faculty members that are versed and trained in quality management system and biosafety and biosecurity. So the importance of this course is that we impact skills to our students on how to conduct laboratory practices in a safe, ethical, environmentally sound, and compliant manner using established standards and principles. And then we also show them or teach them how to protect themselves and their colleagues from the hazards associated with provisions of quality laboratory services in both clinical and research settings. We also teach them on how to respond appropriately to any emergency that may arise within the laboratory setting, and also apply proper waste segregation management measures to mitigate hazards and promote a safe working environment. And we also teach them on how to support a positive attitude on laboratory biosafety and biosecurity, of course, without forgetting the aspect of conducting risk assessment and practice in management. Now, as we move forward, we have been giving them a general overview of the biosafety, biosecurity practices, equipment and facilities required for the safe and secure handling of dangerous pathogens and potentially infectious material in any biomedical laboratory. We also help them to acquire knowledge and understanding of the fundamentals of biosafety, biosecurity, biomedical laboratory work. Importantly, also understanding biorisk management. So our Department of Medical Lab Science and Technology is based within the School of Public Health, Biomedical Science and Technology. And late last year, we held our latest curriculum review workshop as dictated by the Commission for University Education. And we have come to a realization that plans are underway to commence a distinct biosafety program in the faculty at a bachelor's level. We are also discussing and considering aspects of having a postgraduate diploma and bachelor's in biosafety. So from that workshop, we started seeking partnerships. And as you have heard from my colleague Stephanie, we have got good partners from Tanzania. We have Technical University of Kenya, where my colleague is going to present on aspects to do with the same. And we are looking forward to launching this program when the next intake of high school students is brought on board. That is probably in September this year. So thank you very much for your attention. Over to you, Program Director.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Patrick. I'm working closely with James and Stephanie, of course, in presenting this presentation that we're just talking about in terms of cultivating biosafety and biosecurity profession. Personally, I've been engaged in biosafety and biosecurity matters, I think, since 2016 through the Biorisk Management Association of Kenya, which is a non-profit organization under the umbrella of the International Federation of Biosafety Association. We've had quite a number of trainings and workshops, and also training guys basically to do the International Federation of Biosafety Association professional exams, certification in biorisk management, biosecurity, waste management, and so on and so forth. So based on these and bearing in mind that Kenya is really a signatory of the International Health Regulation of 2005, there was a joint external evaluation report by WHO of 2017 that really assessed it as regards to our level of preparedness when it comes to biosafety and biosecurity. The highest mark I think they're giving was about 4, but ideally in terms of what they were focusing on were systems for biosafety and biosecurity in Kenya. How prepared are we? It matters also of the One Health approach, looking at the animal sector, the human sector, and also the environment. And from the assessment, it appeared that yes, we are doing well, but not so good when it comes to biosafety systems, biorisk systems in the country. I think we scored a 2, whereas in biorisk training, I think we scored a 3 out of 4. So based on this, the joint external evaluation of WHO gave some recommendations on how best we can also advance this idea. One of them was to develop a One Health laboratory biorisk management curriculum. The second point was basically to develop and implement a pathogen repository and inventory systems, or simply a database for that, to strengthen collaboration and coordination efforts among key sectors, and also conduct joint biorisk assessments and biorisk management trainings. TUC has been involved, the Biorisk Management Association of Kenya has been involved in the implementation of all these recommendations by the JEE report. And as such, we developed as stakeholders together, the Ministry of Health, basically the NACOSTI were also partners, DITRA, CDC, University of Nairobi participants, KEMRI, FHI 360, and we managed to develop a harmonized curriculum for the laboratory biorisk management curriculum, basically to be implemented nationwide. But more focus was on those ministries of health and of course agriculture as a One Health approach. But after developing that, of course, in the slide, you can see maybe the team members who are collected from all those partners. We realized that, yes, we're doing much, but then as universities, we also need to go a notch higher, basically to develop a clear path career especially for the young guys, what we're doing in terms of just developing a career that by the time you're done with your undergraduate degree, you also get a degree in biosafety and biosecurity. I know the University of Nairobi also kind of developed one, but basically for postgraduate and master's level for biorisk management, which again, as TUK and BMAC, we took part in it in terms of being stakeholders. We developed the curriculum, but so far it has not officially launched, but I suspect one of the reasons is because you need to maybe start from undergraduate before you do a postgraduate degree also in that. So the development of this based by what we're doing right now with Masinde Muliro University to develop one, I'm sure by the time they are even done with the basic degree, they can also apply for a master's degree. So I agree, plans are underway. We've been doing trainings, we've been doing workshops together with our partners, but probably they're not sustainable in the long run. So the whole idea as it is as much as we continue advocating for training in biosafety and biosecurity to have a safe and secure environment, we really need to develop curriculums at the university level, which are really centers of excellence, so that the young youth who participants who are basically in these workshops today also might think about it and maybe take it up as a career profession. We are doing a lot of advocacy, and come, I think April around 19th to 22nd, we'll still be having another virtual workshop basically on sustainable biosafety and biosecurity management in Kenya, which is sponsored by the German Academic Exchange. And we would love to invite some of the youths who are also in participation to this meeting, basically to attend, so that at the end of the day, we'll be working together to have a safe and secure environment when working with biological materials. Over to you, Stephanie.
So much, Patrick. Wonderful, wonderful, as well as James, wonderful advocacy at the national level, and mentioning all of the wonderful projects that you guys are involved in. And I'd also like to thank you for setting up my next point, which is the question of sustainability for increasing capacity over the long term. And so there have been a lot of topics touched upon outside of the curriculum development, whether that be professional certification, whether it be professional development such as training once someone is established in the biosafety and biosecurity career, as well as community support through national associations such as BMAC. And so very briefly, I just want to mention kind of some of the components that I think are part of this sustainable cultivation alongside this curriculum development. What is needed to have sustainable cultivation of biosafety and biosecurity specialists in Kenya, East Africa, and really any example area that we might be looking at in the future. And so according to a lot of these efforts that are happening in parallel, you could say that sustainable cultivation requires an understanding of the challenges and needs of the biosafety and biosecurity workforce at the national level and globally, different emerging disease threats, risk landscapes. They can vary very, very much depending on the country or region that we're looking at. Understanding local context is critical. Number two is enhancing the foundation and responsiveness of the education system to meet the needs of a strong, skilled, and sustainable biosafety and biosecurity workforce, as James and Patrick were mentioning. And then number three is improving youth access to training, skills development, and employment opportunities in the biosafety and biosecurity workforce. That is to say, okay, now that youth are getting involved in dedicated programs, is there a community to receive them afterwards now that they are skilled professionals? And so this is where I want to talk a little bit about the human elements of biosafety and biosecurity to close off, where there are efforts to build technical competency through education and professional certification, but also human elements and efforts to promote human elements. And when I refer to that, I'm referring to the soft skills that mobilize these best technical practices. Where's the utility in that, and how do they kind of come together? And so human elements of biosafety and biosecurity can include leadership and communication skills to promote positive biosafety and biosecurity culture. They can include understanding of local, regional, and global biosafety and biosecurity networks and decision-making mechanisms. So for example, knowing the national and regional associations that are available to you to connect with, knowing what programs may exist in your region or professional development opportunities, as well as what decision-making bodies influence your biosafety and biosecurity legislation in your country or in your region. And so those mechanisms steer relevant and evolving policy and programming, even all the way down to the institutional level where you may be working with biological materials every day. And finally, exploring and discussing best practices in adjacent relevant professional disciplines, such as microbiology, such as neuroscience, et cetera, to apply lessons learned to biosafety and biosecurity policies and programming specifically. And so different efforts that are going on right now that support these types of practices that complement the development of dedicated curricula and other professional development opportunities to build technical expertise in biosafety and biosecurity include strengthening and building upon multi-sectoral collaborative networks at national and regional levels. And so this includes supporting the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative, which has been touched a little bit upon, I think, by some of the alumna of the Youth for Biosecurity program. So supporting youth inclusion in BWC decision-making specifically, and what that entails, what are the benefits of that. The IFBA is an institutional endorser of the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative, as well as the expansion of South-to-South peer-to-peer mentorship. And just to speak a little bit on that, the IFBA Global Mentorship Program, which was launched in 2019, is a dedicated biosafety and biosecurity peer mentorship program, which features specific local support for emerging biosafety and biosecurity professionals. I'm very happy to feature Patrick as one of our star mentors in the East Africa region, as well as I see some familiar faces as well, faces and names in the participant list who are mentors and mentees in the program in the past. And what I want to emphasize the most here in speaking about local context is that this mentorship program pairs these emerging professionals with experts that are in their area. And I just want to emphasize here that with the amount of different initiatives and presentations today from my colleagues, as well as various other individuals on this call, is that Kenya and East Africa is they're absolute powerhouses in terms of technical expertise, in terms of community mobilization. And a lot of the success in the IFBA mentorship program was providing a platform for these community dynamics to take place, and connecting youth to experts in their area in order to fully develop them as local specialists in the future. And then finally, I will just mention that the support for diversity, equity, and inclusion is incorporated in a lot of the efforts that I've mentioned today. So making sure that women and other underrepresented individuals in biosafety and biosecurity are included at every step of decision-making and making meaningful contributions to these projects. And so when we do this, we can actually assess the full spectrum of risk and the full spectrum of options that are available to us in capacity building, in decision-making, and ensuring that we have, again, a sustainable workforce in the future for biosafety and biosecurity, where it can be argued that an inclusive and equitable workforce is a sustainable one. And so that pretty much brings our presentation to a close today. I would really like to thank UNODA, the BWC ISU, NACOSTI, as well as my valued colleagues, Patrick and James. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll turn things back over to you, Remy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, Patrick, and James for this great presentation. And congratulations to all of you and to Kenya for this great project that you're carrying out. And like Mr. Daniel Fix said in his opening remarks, that confirmed that Kenya is strengthening its place as a regional leader, really, in implementing all things related to biosecurity and biosafety, including the BWC. I've put in the chat some links to the IFBA website. I really encourage you to have a look on the programs mentioned by Stephanie. Like you said, Stephanie, an important part of our Youth for Biosecurity alumni are involved in some shape or form with IFBA and with other initiatives that we'll hear about right now. So that's a very good way to get involved, and I encourage you to check that out. Thank you again to you three. If you have any questions, I'm addressing the audience. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll make sure to send them to our speakers. Professor Oyawa also shared with you the email address of Dr. Marion Sarigo. So, and I see Stephanie is sharing her email address as well. So you have a lot of contact points now to follow up on any question you might have. Thank you very much. We're now down to our second and last panel discussion today, and I'm pleased to welcome 4 speakers with us, representing 4 youth networks and many opportunities for you to get involved. So with us today, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Gabrielle Essex. She's a program officer in the Global Biological Policy and programs at the Nuclear Threat Initiative, NTI. We also have with us Mr. Geoffrey Otim. He's the founder and CEO of the Symbio Africa initiative. We have Mr. Alex Kiabarongo. He is the IGEM Regional Ambassador Head for Africa in 2022. And finally, Mrs. Mayam Sani Lawal. She is an alumni of the Youth for Biosecurity workshop in 2021. She is also one of the drafters of the Youth Declaration for Biosecurity, and she will tell us more about that. So I'd like to give you the floor successively so you can tell us a bit more about the opportunities for young scientists to get involved in global biosecurity. And if that's okay, I'd like to start with you, Gabi. So over to you, and my colleague will share the slide now with everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Remy. And then just while the slides are being brought up, hello, everyone. My name is Gabby Essex, and I'm a program officer here on the NTI bio team. I'm very excited to be invited today to talk to you about this opportunity for young professionals wishing to work in the biosecurity field. But before I jump into an overview of the 2022 Next Generation for Biosecurity competition, I would first like to thank the Next Generation for Global Health Security Network for once again partnering with us in this competition. And additionally, I would like to thank our new partners, the IGEM Foundation, Symbio Africa, both of which are on this call with me today, and the Global Health Security Network for all their support. And next slide, please. So since its launch in 2017, the Next Generation for Biosecurity competition has successfully energized an internationally connected and diverse network of next generation biosecurity leaders who are working to strengthen global biosecurity and reduce the risk of deliberate and accidental catastrophic biological events. Winners of the competition have hailed from across the globe, from Argentina and Azerbaijan to Uganda and United Kingdom. And actually last year our winner was from East Africa. So we are a very globally diverse competition. And these winners have presented their unique proposals and ideas at side events of global forums, such as the Biological Weapons Convention meeting of state parties and the Global Health Security Agenda ministerial meetings. So winners of the 22 competition will receive an online publication of their paper on the NTI website and the opportunity to travel to, attend, and present during a side event at a prestigious global health security event, such as the Global Health Security Conference, which will be held later this year in June in Singapore. Next slide, please. So this year's participants, we're asking them to write on the following question, which is very apt for this meeting, but it's how can the global community leverage the tools of modern science to develop an effective and politically acceptable verification protocol to strengthen the Biological Weapons Convention? Next slide. So your submission, they should define what verification should mean for the BWC. Explain what barriers to verification protocols exist or have previously existed. Define the risk associated with maintaining the status quo of not having a verification protocol. Identify and examine potential approaches for verification protocol from a scientific and technical standpoint. So what tools of modern technology and bioscience can be applied to advance the feasibility and the verification within the BWC context? And finally, submissions, they should design policy proposals that can increase the likelihood of adoption of a verification mechanism. So explore how governments can productively approach BWC verification, and then how can we build a verification regime that strikes the right balance between improving transparency while not being exclusively intrusive. Next slide, please. So to be eligible to enter this competition, teams must have 3 participants and include members from 2 or more countries and or regions. And we highly encourage that the teams be multi-sectoral. Applicants must also be enrolled in an academic institution or have at least less than 5 years professional experience. And if you need help finding a team, you can complete the Next Generation for Biosecurity Interest form and be placed on a list of others who have also filled out this form. And you can look for teammates there, and I will add a link later in the chat. Next slide. So here are the basic submission requirements. So you'll submit 2 separate documents. So the first document will be your competition submission, so the full paper, and there's a paper outline that will include details such as formatting and word count requirements, and I will also add a link to that in the chat. And then the second document will be your team's resumes. All submissions must be in English, and we highly encourage that you consult at least one expert in the field on your paper. Next slide. So all submissions must be submitted in full by midnight Eastern time on April 18th, 2022 to be considered. And submissions should be submitted to nti/bio@nti.org, and the winners will be announced in June 2022. And then for more information on the competition, I will place a link in the chat so you can access our competition page for more detail. And then we're actually hosting an event later on today at 11 a.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. EAT. And this webinar will go more into depth on the competition, and you'll also be able to hear a moderated discussion from experts in the field. And the discussion will be moderated by a former winner of the Next Gen Biosecurity competition. And I'll add that registration link in the chat as well. So thank you so much, Remy and everyone, for listening to me about this opportunity. And we are excited to get some very interesting and creative proposals.
Thanks a lot, Gabi. That's a great opportunity for everyone to submit papers. And like you said, this year's topic is a really interesting one. So yeah, I encourage you to check it out. I think, Gabi, you're sharing links in the chat right now. I know that you also have to leave us, but you left an email address, NDI bio email address. So if again, if participants have any questions, they can reach out to Mary, to us, or to NTI. Thank you very much, Gabi. And with that, I'd like to give the floor to our next speaker, and I'd like to turn now to Mr. Geoffrey Otim. So Geoffrey, as I mentioned, is a founder and CEO of SynBio Africa, a great regional initiative on studying biology in Africa. He is also an alumni of several, if not all opportunities that we've been talking today, iGEM, and use for biosecurity in particular. So we're very happy to have you with us today, Geoffrey. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Remy, and I hope you can hear me well.
We can hear you fine, yes.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm sorry that I could not attend the whole session because I'm also attending another conference here in Monaco. But I'm happy that you have given me the chance again to talk to my fellow scientists from Kenya and across East Africa. Yes, my name is Tim Geoffrey, and I'm the founder of SynBio Africa. I'm sure it is not a new name that most of you have heard. So this is an open platform for all scientists that I'm seeing here. I have to announce to you that it is an open forum for all of you to come. We work together so that we, grow this new science of synthetic biology across Africa. So a lot has been said. As the topic of today is to find some of the opportunities for our youth to engage in global biosecurity. Gabi has already talked about the next generation for biosecurity competition, and we are happy that SynBio Africa is one of the partners this year for this competition. And also we are fronting one of the, there's one of the doctors from our side is going to take part in the selection. So I encourage all our scientists across Africa, to give a try on this and possibly bring back, the win to Africa. And we are also proud that the recent competition, one of the winners came from our side here, and is also one of the participants here, I can see. So I'm encouraging all our scientists here to give, to apply for this, so that this is another way of advancing your knowledge in biosecurity. And also, I'm glad, I'm proud that I was one of the pioneers of this Global South Biosecurity Diplomacy Program way back in 2019, and I'm so proud to see it moving even bigger and better. And so this is another opportunity for our youth here in East Africa, to apply for these opportunities, and you get to advance your knowledge in the areas of biosecurity. So also there is this prestigious program of emerging leaders in biosecurity program by Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. This used to be for basically US, Canada, and European countries, but this year they have opened, and it opened for all the countries globally. So I think this is the right opportunity for you also to try. I think the deadline is still on around 31st March 2022. So it's still early. You can still try, put in your application, and you possibly get the opportunity. And then back to SynBio Africa, we also have opportunity that you out there, the scientists, especially from Africa, can look out for it. Last year, we ran the first emerging leaders in synthetic biology and biosecurity program. It was a fellowship program that we sponsored over 15 African scientists to come and attend our first international synthetic biology and biosecurity conference here in Kampala. So this year, we're also planning to run a second cohort of emerging leaders in synthetic biology and biosecurity. And so this is now the formal announcement to our scientists who are here to keep watch, because we are going to have the advert run in the next 2 or 3 months. So that would be another opportunity for you to meet and learn and hear from thought leaders in biosecurity. Lastly, also at SynBio Africa, we are glad to get some grant to run a global catastrophic biological risk initiative program. This program, we are going to run it for 1 year, and it will be for the whole Africa. We are going to reach out to all the 5 regions in Africa. And so I'm glad to propose that Nairobi or Kenya might be our regional center where we're going to run the program for East Africa. And then other regions of Africa, we are also going to make a selection of where we can base. So that is another opportunity. Global catastrophic biological risk is biosecurity is a subset of this big program. So we are also going to bring experts in the field of biosecurity, biosafety, to give the perspectives of biosecurity. And this is going to be more of awareness, training and workshops, and also convening policymakers, others influential people in different regions, to work towards preparing a country for any pandemics. Not to be like how COVID came and most countries were not prepared. So this is what we are going to try to do to build capacity for countries to prepare for the pandemic. So basically, that's what I have to say. I don't have much to say, but I'll be happy to answer any question that any of you have there. But the most important thing, I've said that SynBio Africa is very open for all the scientists across Africa and also beyond to grow SynBio together, and also have policy regulations are in place to untie our hands as scientists to exploit our potential. We already have expertise in biotechnology. So it's upon now the regulatory framework to be put in place for us to continue with the biotechnology or the synbio technological work that we have to do. So thank you so much. Back to you, Remy.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey, for taking the time. I know that you're attending another conference right now, so it's great that you were able to join us. Yeah, we're looking forward to working more with Symbio Africa. You have a lot of events coming up, and I'm sure we'll have opportunity. Thank you very much, Geoffrey. Next, I'd like to give the floor to our next speaker. We will talk about iGEM, which is another great youth network and a great way to get involved in synthetic biology. And we have with us Mr. Alex Kiabarongo, who is the iGEM Regional Ambassador Head for Africa. Alex, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Remy, and everyone for attending. I extend my thanks to NACOSTI, and in order for preparing this workshop, it's really, really important that we extend this to the youth in East Africa. And I would be glad to see that it extends not only to Kenya, but across the African countries. So my name is Alex. I'm a veterinary medicine student at Makerere University, finalizing this year. And I'm also the regional ambassador head for Africa for iGEM 2022. I joined iGEM in 2018 with Makerere University, and through the last 3 years I've been working closely with iGEM through the communications committee to the ambassador for Africa, to regional ambassador program coordinator for Africa in 2021, and now to the regional ambassador head for Africa. And I'm glad that I work with a team of African enthusiasts in biology and synthetic biology, and in life sciences as ambassadors. And lucky that Kenya is having 3 of those ambassadors this year, one being Mary, who is currently in Romania, and others, Richard, being in Nairobi. So we work together to see that we promote synthetic biology and iGEM across Africa. So I'm also a member of Next Generation Global Health Security Network, and I've been part of it since 2018, which promotes biosecurity also, and One Health perspectives. I had Patrick talk about think about One Health in this regard when we're thinking about biosafety and biosecurity. It's very important. I'm also a member of Symbio Africa, which is headed by Geoffrey. Actually, Geoffrey introduced me to everything that we are talking about today, from iGEM to Symbio Africa, and now the journey continues to see that it spreads across Africa. So iGEM, in particular, those who do not know about iGEM, iGEM stands for International Genetically Engineered Machine. It's a non-profit organization based in USA, in Massachusetts, but now the head offices are in Paris. And its role is to promote synthetic biology and biotechnology globally through competition. And we are happy to have the biggest synthetic biology competition globally. And it was happening in Boston, but now it is happening in Paris. So this year we're going to host a jamboree in Paris. So how can iGEM be involved in this in terms of the youth in Kenya and in Africa about biosecurity and biosafety? So the competition itself gives us a platform, or gives the youth a platform to share their ideas in life sciences, in synthetic biology, in biotechnology, things that are related with biosecurity and biosafety too. When you're presenting a project, the guidelines that we follow in IGM, and to see that everything is done under the values of IGM in terms of biosafety and biosecurity. And the competition also exposes you to more folks like you who have the same mind to explore this field, to participate in the competition that have been talked about by Geoffrey and by Gadi, especially the coming competition on that is organized by NTI and Simba Africa and Next Generation Global Health Security Network. So one of the ways how IGEM actually gets involved is that we have a range of activities that get the youth involved in, including the safety and security program that is headed by TESA. And through this program, we have the Safety and Security Fellowship, which started last year, and it's continuing to engage fellows in knowing about biosafety and biosecurity. And the role is that IGEM wants to put values and in terms of how safe the work that we are doing is, because we know that this is dual life science and anything can happen. If not well used, it can impact on everyone from the environment to human health and animal health. So we want to see that the values are withheld when we are doing the research that we do. And through this, in the last 2 years, I've been able to participate, to head actually a team that participates in the values and risk workshop across Africa that is promoted by IGM through the safety and security program. So here we are talking about, we talk to the teams how they should be involved in safe and secure practices within their labs and even outside in the community. And I believe that when you participate in IGM, you are exposed to all these opportunities. And also there is a governance and policy working group in IGM that also focuses on biosafety and biosecurity. So lastly, our partner Gingo Bioworks has a public policy fellowship. And through this fellowship, unfortunately, the deadline for this is done, is passed. It was this month, but next year the fellowship continues. So you can apply and be involved in this fellowship to know how to regulate the policies or be involved in policy making within your country and even within the region, because we need the youth to be involved in policy drafting and the guidelines for us to be able to know how biosecurity and biosafety works within our borders. So please go ahead and apply when the next offer comes in for the Gingo Bioworks Public Policy Fellowship. So I implore us all to reach out to your local IGM teams. In Kenya, there is already an IGM team that participated last year. It was at IPR, that is Institute of Primate Research in Nairobi. And there have been other teams, including those in Uganda. Okay, sorry. Including those in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, and in Egypt, and other countries in Ghana and across. We are trying to promote synthetic biology through IGM participation across Africa. So reach out to your local IGM teams and work with them to develop safe and secure work practices. Help them build training curriculum, perform safety walkthroughs with them, and provide security recommendations within their work. Be a leader in field with our partners in synthetic biology like Simba Africa. I really do encourage all of you to step up, be visible, and take advantage this opportunity to make the world a better place. And perhaps where you are meeting with IGMers or do-it-yourself biologists or local biotechers, you can always convince them to be part of the global biosecurity and biosafety community, most especially the youth. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Back to you, Remy.
Thank you very much, Alex. And yeah, I can only agree with you. We've worked with IGEM over the past years for the Youth for Biosecurity initiative, and that is really a very hands-on opportunity to get involved. And the IGEM competition, and in particular the work of the Safety and Security Committee headed by Tessa, as you mentioned, really produce inputs and insight on how to strengthen the national, regional, and global biosecurity regime. It's also a great opportunity to raise awareness about the BWC, as many scientists engaging in potentially dual use research of concern do not always know about it. So really a great opportunity to get involved. I see that there might be already some questions, but before we take maybe a couple of questions, I'd like to go to our last speaker of this panel. This is Mrs. Mariam Sanilawal. So as I was mentioning, Mariam is an alumni of the 2021 Youth for Biosecurity workshop and one of the drafters of the Youth Declaration for Biosecurity. The Youth Declaration for Biosecurity was mentioned already by Professor Yawa in his opening remarks, and Mariam will tell us more about it and how to endorse it. So Mariam, thank you very much for being with us, and over to you. Your slides are on the screen.
Okay, thank you, Remy. I'm really glad to be here to present the Declaration for Biosecurity, prepared by some colleagues and myself as a result of our participation in the UNODA 2021 cohort of the Biosecurity and Diplomacy Workshop for young scientists from the Global South. Before I go further, I would like to briefly share with you how the idea for the declaration came to be. After the workshop ended last year, we were further engaged in a number of programs thanks to the support of UNODA, and we ultimately had the opportunity to present the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative at the meeting of experts 1, where the diplomats were outstanding and looked forward for ways to bridge the gap between science and diplomacy with the young biosecurity community. So we young scientists and researchers from around the world came together to recommend these concrete actions on youth biosecurity, biosafety, disarmament, and non-proliferation of biological weapons that we supported, which was later adapted and transformed into the Youth Declaration for Biosecurity. Next slide, please. The importance of this declaration could be highlighted in the fact that in addressing key biosecurity issues, latest developments in science and technology must be put into consideration. And most often, young scientists are found at the forefront of such research pursuits. Therefore, raising awareness and strengthening youth engagement in biosecurity discussions is of paramount importance, and the same is acknowledged within the framework of the BWC and the United Nations Disarmament Agenda. Next slide, please. So the declaration is a call to all BWC state parties and stakeholders to engage with the youth and young scientists to create a world free from biological weapons. Next slide, please. The actions contained in these declarations are divided into two main sections. One is the recommended actions that the BWC and state parties can take to support youth, and actions endorsed by the youth to further strengthen global biosecurity capacity. Next slide, please, Remy. The first under the recommended actions is the creation of a scientific advisory group that would provide expert advice on science and technology to state parties and the ISU under the BWC. And it should represent diverse stakeholders, including youth representation. Next slide, please. Our second recommendation is the creation of a clear pipeline for biosecurity career advancement. We call for the inclusion of biorisk management education as part of undergrad and grad programs. Also, early and mid-career scientists and policy professionals should receive education through workshops and trainings, such as the Youth for Biosecurity Initiative and other related similar initiatives. Next slide, please. Thirdly, we call for the adoption of the ethical guidelines at the global level, and we support sharing of biorisk management knowledge and best practices to create uniformity in norms and standards, thereby fostering global collaboration among emerging scientists. Next slide, please. Our final recommendation is that we call for the inclusion of diverse voices in biorisk management, including youth representation in all biosecurity-related matters and on different platforms. Next slide, please. In addition to these specific recommendations I mentioned, we also endorse the following general principles to strengthen global biosecurity capacity. First of which is building thematic, regional, and global partnerships linking all biosecurity stakeholders and increase North-South and South-South cooperation to empower the youth. Secondly, we call for the adoption of a robust biorisk management system in life science institutions that will assess risk while recognizing benefits. This will go a long way in implementing the BWC mandates. Thirdly, we support biosafety and biosecurity awareness initiatives through various means, such as events, publications, and social media. And international organizations such as UNODA and UNIDIA can play a leading role to develop and disseminate a comprehensive understanding of biosecurity. And lastly, we support capacity building and harmonization of national and regional guidelines to rapidly prevent, detect, report, and respond to unusual infectious disease outbreaks. Next slide, please. Yes, I would like to show you the hardworking team that worked on the declaration. So we call for your support and endorsement. Next slide, please. Various prominent institutions and individuals have endorsed this declaration, including Ifba, iGensin BioAfrica, NTI Bio, and Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. And it is worthy of note that all these processes was facilitated by UNODA. Next slide, please. Here are some of the individual endorsers of this declaration, and we also call for your show of support by filling out the endorsement form on this link that will also be shared on the chat. The declaration is available on the UNODA website, and so is the endorsement form for both individual and institutional endorsers. Next slide, please. Thank you all for listening, and we are open to deliberations on the declaration, and it could be a starting point for other important discussions. And we hope we can count on your support, endorsement, and future engagement, as well as we all strive to create a world free from biological threats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayam, for this great presentation. And yes, we encourage you to read and endorse the declaration. It's one good way for young scientists and youth in general to have an active role under the BWC and join a call to action. As you can see, many networks that we've been presenting to you today have participated or endorsed it. So we would really appreciate your support and your involvement. The link to the youth declaration has been posted in the chat, so you can read on the development process of this declaration. You can access the English version of it and also click on the form to endorse it. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm aware that we are behind schedule, so I don't want to delay us further. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat and we will follow up with you. But with that, I'd like to thank our 4 speakers, panelists today. Thank you very much for your participation and for sharing with us those opportunities to get involved. Just before I give the floor to Professor Yawa for his presentation, just like to quickly address one question I've seen in the chat, is UNODA working to establish counter-bioterrorism initiatives, especially in Kenya? And if yes, how can one join? Just to quickly address this one. So UNODA is working towards the implementation of several disarmament conventions and instruments, including the BWC. Of course, the BWC encompass counter-bioterrorism efforts. So by implementing the BWC, one also take the measures to impede non-state actors, in particular terrorists, to acquire biological weapons. So that's part of the overall BWC implementation. Now we have colleagues working on other instruments that the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540, which focuses on the impeding non-state actors, terrorist groups from acquiring weapons of mass destruction. So this is your question. This is a focus also for our colleague from the 1540 resolution committee. I just wanted to answer this one quickly. Yes, now I'd like to go to our last presentation and give the floor back to you, Professor Oyawa, for a presentation on what NACOSTI is doing, its mandate and its function. And before giving you the floor, I think that we have a question that is relevant to your presentation in the chat. So I'd just like to give it to you straight away. So we have a question and a comment and a question. Rarely you will hear scientists participate in hands-on and scenario drills with dedicated trainer like ODA. What is Kenya doing to close this gap? So probably this will be addressed also in your presentation. Thank you, Professor Oyawa, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Remy. I hope I'm audible. I've tried to respond to that important observation, but we want to inform that it's always said it's better late than never. I think Kenya is now engaging UNODA very intensively, based on our previous engagement during the meeting of states parties, and we are now coming to Geneva, I think, with a strong delegation of over 20 persons, senior government officials, and each one of them represents various institutions. Actually, what you're getting, and maybe BWC can assist us, I think two of our delegates seem to be time-barred. We are told we cannot get not verbal. So I should not say this here, but they are really querying if you can get in touch with our permanent mission. We have two vice-chancellors, the University of Embu and Southeastern Kenya University. Why am I saying this? It's simply because the youth here, most of their leaders, most of the institutions, we're already bringing them on board. And we will not be able to come directly to you, but we'll come through your agency, through your institutions, and of course, in our website, these opportunities are there. We believe that there's a lot, like in our last meeting, we had with almost 7 delegations, EU, Canada, US, and these have continued. After the meeting of state parties, we have engaged them intensively. I think my colleague Mary is aware that I've been invited to a meeting, I think, in the UK, and one of the programs on biological threat reduction. So these opportunities are there, which we are going to escalate to today. But we also need your ideas on how do we proceed with this? How do we proceed with the biosafety curriculum? Now, with your permission, I'll go straight to my presentation. I'll try to make it short. The title is there. Go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, very, very quickly. The question is, how is NACOSTI? How is NACOSTI connecting to all this talk that we have had today? And we say that NACOSTI is established by the Science, Technology and Innovation Act with the sole purpose of regulating and assuring quality in the science, technology and innovation sector and advise the government in matters related thereto. That sentence speaks a lot, that even for those scientists, the bioscientists, I'm not a bioscientist myself, I'm an engineer, but even for those bioscientists who are there, you really want your voice to be heard in government, and one of the shortest routes to use is NACOSTI. We have panel teams that advise on various issues. So we can advise, like now we are advising on marine resources. So we can engage as part of an advisory. And more important also at this particular time, Kenya has just initiated the process of developing our next component of our Vision 2030, which is called NTP4. So I would urge my colleagues, fellow presenters from Kenya who are very passionate about this and whom we have met at NACOSTI, please, this is the time to incite matters of biosecurity, biosafety inside the MTP4, the medium-term development plan, which is part of Kenya's Vision 2030. If you don't include it there, then it's very difficult to come and start telling people that, you know, this thing is important. This is a great opportunity. I will try to put it there, but we also need to be with us on that. So next slide. I'll skip some. So yes, the key functions, there are about 17 functions of NACOSTI, but I'm just mentioning the highlights. This is how we come in. There's 17 very powerful functions of NACOSTI, which the youth and participants were here, you might wish to download and just check under section 6. I've just captured three of them. The top one is to develop, in consultation with stakeholders, the priorities in scientific, technological, and innovation activities in Kenya in relation to the economic and social policies of the government and the country's international commitments. So if you want bioscience, matters of UNODA, matters of whichever CBRN to come in strongly, then we need to make this advisory jointly, because the cost is work, we don't have the experts, the deep experts. Ours is just to convey, bring a team of experts, they discuss, they agree, they engage stakeholders, and then inform the national government. The other one, which we are well known for, is approve all scientific research, and then advise the government on policies and any issue relating to scientific research systems. Research systems talks of research, science, technology, innovation. So we are in a position where we can air your voice, air the voice of the youth. And the last one, this is just 4 out of 17, is annually review the progress in scientific research systems and submit a report of its findings and recommendations to the Cabinet Secretary. And anything submitted to the Cabinet Secretary most likely ends up at even higher levels. So we are doing this document for the first time. I think I've been in NACOSTI for now almost 2 years. We are doing this document for the first time, and it will go. So we would want to capture matters of Biological Weapons Convention because there's no other way. Next. Yes, next slide. Yes, we just want to inform that the country has given us the mandate to be the focal point of a number of international obligations. A good number of them are related. You can see we have the Biological Weapons Convention, but on the other side, we talk of the peaceful use of biology. We are also the focal point of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, which is based in Italy. So a number of these, I will not, they are mentioned there. You can read this slide later on. We are focal point for AFRA, focal point for CTBTO, and currently I'm the chairperson and also representing Kenya in the East African Science and Technology Commission, where I think the BWC, Mr. Alex of BWC was able to present in the last conference, I think in December. He made a very good presentation. So we are in a position to connect regionally and also connect locally. And if you come to us, we'll share a lot with this. You'll see more of us moving forward. Next. Yes, next slide. Yes, so I just want to reemphasize what I said in my speech or my remarks, that Kenya has been steadfast in participating in BWC since 1976. This is the delegation which was there during the meeting of states parties in November. And I think here we were meeting with the delegation of the US, if I'm not wrong. But if you look at the center, our top person head of delegation was none other than the principal secretary in the State Department for University Education. He was to come this time around, but he's not been able. But it just shows the level in which now the voice of matters about science, about security is being heard. And this is the time actually to even conclude matters of the bill. We are committed to try and bring stakeholders in to now finalize biosecurity strategy as NACOSTI, just coordinating, yes, bringing the expertise. So please assist us on that one. Next. And this is our role as a national focal point. This is from the BW website, the role of the focal point. I think there are three areas which are clearly captured. One is coordinating national implementation of the convention. Coordinating national, so we need to know of the youth for biosecurity activities, just for recording purposes. It is important that you alert us on what is going on. So we coordinate national implementation of the convention and communicating with other states parties. We prepare the submission of CBMs, and with this one we have desk officers currently in almost over 70 ministries, departments, and agencies. And it is this desk officers, some of them will be joining us for the trip. So the youth who are in universities, research institutions, and MBAs, please try and find out if you have already a desk officers. Not all institutions have that, but we have gone ahead and designated desk officers within a number of agencies. This is part of our work at NACOSTI. And the third one is facilitating information exchange or universalization. And that is exactly what's happening here. Next slide. And I'll skip. I think we are all exhausted, but yes. Now, what is the relevance of these matters of biological weapons convention? I just picked something from the newspaper, one of our leading newspapers. I think this was Standard Media. This is one of two key newspapers, Remy, just to inform you. In 2016, this is what they captured. And that's why there should be interest that Kenyan security agencies announced that they have successfully foiled a plan by a group of medical interns to unleash a biological weapon terror attack using anthrax bacteria. Our youth are very innovative. They can be, most of them do use the innovation for the good things, but you cannot rule out those who will take this kind of direction. So this was an area of concern. Next. And that's why we need to fast track and work proactively. Then this one is very recent. In 2020, January, our Minister for Interior, Cabinet Secretary for Interior, was well informed. I think he had a delegation from the US, and he's captured again in our newspaper, again, one of our newspapers, and he says Kenya is at risk of chemical and biological weapons attack due to lack of laws and curriculum on biosafety. Experts have said this is the right moment to be able to work with the experts who are gathered here and the youth to bring this matter to the fore, to Parliament. And I think we have, I think our collaboration with the team from UK were willing to assist us even in the politics, because scientists are not very good at politics. So that as these things start, you start them with the knowledge of the politicians. You don't start them, finalize them, then take them to Parliament. When you start the process of preparing the draft legislation, the committee, relevant committees need to be aware, they need to be appraised regularly. This is what has been missing. So we think we can move faster. Next. So another area of concern, which is very recent, this is November, just very recent, about 3-4 months ago, it was in our newspaper. This is a potential use of pesticides. For now, it is it is not intentional, it is unintentional, but the record that was done by one of our key regulating agencies called KEFIS, and I think one of some of their staff are here, is that the research they did, they found the kale that we take, we call it sukuma wiki in Kenya, is laden with pesticides harmful to humans and the environment, as study has shown. So there's a lot of worry. So you can read the rest of the literature, but it's a great concern. If somebody were to turn it now to be intentional, yes, killing people very slowly, and you can see that even the WHO has said 1 in 10 people falls ill after consuming contaminated food. And sometimes you wonder, what is the issue? The kale is very green, it's very nice, it looks very nice, you cook it, but then you have issues. And it's maybe the overuse of pesticide, but that is not the main issue. The issue is, suppose somebody intentionally would do this, what number of people would perish or would have suffering? These are the things that we need to work on proactively beyond this. This is data from the scientists. It's not speculation. It is not just news. It is factual. Next. Yes, next slide. The other one that we presented to the BWC meeting of state parties, some of the areas, is this plant, which was introduced to assist in afforestation in Kenya. It's called madenge. The experts call it Prosopis juliflora. It is spreading very fast countrywide. And I know I've been one of the boards of Kenya Forest Research, where they're even trying to have a center of excellence on this. It is spreading very fast. The news there, if you see that madenge and its weeds has caused untold suffering to residents of one of the sub-counties in Kenya. The residents have raised concern over the death of the animals, the needles. This was introduced in Kenya. It's alien. But now, again, it's unintentional. Suppose now somebody converts it to intentional. These are the matters that where now we believe that the experts need to tell us, as the cost we're willing to assist, but the experts need to pick up that. So with that, I think move a little bit faster. Let me see what is in the next. What is in the next? Yes, one of the functions that NACOSTI does is research licensing. And if you look at research licensing, the criteria is very close to what the Biological Weapons Convention is all about, that the criteria that we check, that the research that you do does not impact negatively on national security, it does not impact negatively on the lives of Kenyans, on culture, on nature, and so forth. So this is very close to the desires of Biological Weapons Convention, so that the research that you do, biological research that you do, is not a threat to national security, which is paramount. Next. Yeah, so very quickly, this is what we presented in MSP. What are the priorities of Kenya that we presented? And we are populating this list. This is what we have been engaging with the partners, the almost 7 partners delegation that we met, and we hope BWC will assist us to reconnect with them because we have been engaging with them online. One was mapping out the BWC infrastructure and human capital. So that is the case of NACOSTI, using our resources to bring a team of experts from various institutions to map out for that. The other one is national biosecurity strategy. Matters of the bill has been there since 2010, I'm told. I heard of that. But now we are determined and hoping that there's a goodwill to move this strategy, which will inform the bill, which will inform other legislation or other regulations that come forth. This is the time. The youth needs to be, in fact, the youth are able to shout louder. If you shout louder, maybe the roadblocks that are being placed on this will be removed. Then we need experience sharing on biosecurity matters, which is happening now. Next. Yes, then strengthening the youth capacity on biosecurity matters. And this is why we were able to, we thank UNODA for engaging with us to do that. So that's already happening, and we hope that it can proceed more. Then regional coordination to support universalization. Kenya is best placed at the moment. I think our president is the chairperson of the East African community, and we're involved in a number of things. We believe we can be able to be also the voice of the BWC around the region. Then cross-border monitoring is very, very dangerous now. I don't have to say how our borders are, but it's very, very delicate. Kenya is harmonious. There's harmony in Kenya, but just outside somewhere, things happen that we're not so sure. It's very risky. So the most obvious weapon that anybody would go for, maybe cheap, as compared to other conventional weapons, is biological weapons. Next. I'm almost finishing. You'll bear with me. Then you have talked to university widths as a threat. Next. A capacity building for champions and desk officers. Yes, we talked of desk officers. We need to build their capacity. We need to give them voice in the institution that they are. They need to be heard. These are the people that can work with the team that is trying to make a curriculum. Yes, the curriculum. These are the team that the team needs to find out to how do they work with them, and we bring them together and they spearhead some of these activities in the institution. Next, I think probably the conclusion. In concluding, we want to say that the pandemic has reaffirmed the vital role of science, technology, innovation as a global public good. This is one of the key mantras of the International Science Council, of which I'm a member of the governing board at the moment. They're also very much concerned about the impacts of COVID. At the moment, there's the bad side of it, but the good side of it is that there's opportunity for funding, there's opportunity, people are aware. If we now talk of BWC because of COVID, people might take some time to listen in, maybe the parliamentarians. Then Kenya is at a risk of chemical biological weapons attack. Due to the lack of laws and curriculum on biosafety, I challenge professionals to come forth, tell us the roadmap of what to achieve this. There's an urgent need for the youth in Kenya to be part of BWC community, which they're doing. And I'm indeed happy that over 100 of you participated today. Let's engage further. And as NACOSTI, we seek to partner with the youth and relevant institutions to highlight the importance of BWC during these disrupted times and involving the next generation of biosecurity experts. Remy, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Professor, for this very informative presentation. And again, we look forward to continuing the discussion with you in a week or so in Geneva. Thank you to everyone for staying with us behind schedule. We have now reached the end of our event, and I'd like to give the floor to our last speaker, who will deliver the closing remarks. We have with us Professor Paul Kuria Wainaina. He's the Kenyan Academic Administrator and Vice Chancellor of the Kenyatta University in Kenya. Sir, thank you very much for bearing with us. Apologies for the delay, and thanks again for being with us. Over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Remy. The Vice Chancellor, Kenyatta University, Professor Paul Wainaina, was not able to be with you. He is involved with some auditors in the institution, and so he has asked me to come and represent him and to close this workshop on his behalf. My name is Professor Paul Okemo. I'm the acting Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration. Now, I will not be very long because I think you have been out there listening to many speeches and you may be getting tired. And so I'll try to be a bit brief. Now I want to recognize the contributions of NACOSTI. I also want to recognize Professor Oyawa for organizing all these things. Remy, Gabi, United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs, you've done a great job as well to bring us together to discuss these things. Geoffrey, your team, whom I saw in the audience, I think I've interacted with him at some point or other. And so I just want to mention his name. Then there is Alex Kaibiarongo, who also gave us a talk. Now, I want to then go on to the speech for closing the workshop. I was not here all through because it was very difficult to log in. We tried many times to log in, but after 1 hour, we managed to log in. Sarigo managed to get us through and we logged in. And so we just want to say thank you. Now, having said that, allow me to make the closing remarks. And I want to start by saying that it was a good thing to bring the youth to this workshop so that the youth can also listen to this message that we have been listening to and we have been talking about for so many years. I'm hoping that this time with this reorganization of biosafety, biosecurity, that the wheel you have started rolling now is going to roll a little longer than the other wheels have rolled in the past, because I'm aware of other contributions that have been made on the same subject, and for some reason, the wheels that were rolling those contributions got to some point and got tired and they got stuck in the mud somewhere. In those presentations where we have had these wheels rolling, and I'm hoping that our young people in Africa are aware of the presence of an organization called African Biosafety Association. And this is an organization that has been there for many years. I was the CEO for that organization for 8 years. I was also a member of Ifba. And Ifba, I am aware, is still there and is still discussing these issues that I have had many of you mention in this discussion. In many of those discussions, there have been handling of things like dangerous pathogens. Many times those topics have come up. There have been conferences and seminars on those issues. There have been even certificates being issued for handling and shipment of biological materials, and people have done those exams and some of them have received certificates. And I would want to encourage the young people that even as you go through this, you can do all these courses as well, so that we can hand over this baton to you, because it's a worry to all of us. And I'm just going to mention why I think it's a worry to all of us, and it is a topic we cannot afford to drop. We cannot afford to drop it. There have been discussions also in many of those workshops on laboratory biorisk management, analysis of biorisk management, how to mitigate biorisk in laboratories. We have had biosafety cabinets, all the types of biosafety cabinets analyzed, and then a choice of filters in those biological cabinets, biosafety cabinets, how to access them, and the importance of each one of those filters, and also analysis of how each one of the biosafety cabinets work. It is my pleasure, therefore, to close this workshop on youth for biosecurity. And I have listened to many presenters since around 5 o'clock. I have enjoyed the spirit and the mode for the workshop. Allow me, therefore, to use this privilege to invite the young people to join Ifba and also to join ABSA. Indeed, bioterrorism is a reality which is going to be even more pronounced in your time as the youths. It is believed that the next Third World War is not going to be missiles and tanks, but is likely to be chemical or biological weapons. Biological terrorism or war is self-propelling, and the enemy does not have to be present or to be known. It is convenient and can be very, very lethal. You have seen in movies where one gets infected in the morning and in the afternoon, he or she starts rotting while walking. I do not think that that is a myth, that is a reality, and I can assure you that is likely to happen very soon. I had to give a keynote speech in Casablanca, Morocco, and I went through ways of deletions and insertions of genes and the possibility of coming up with these superbugs that can be able to do this kind of jobs. And I know that this is going to happen very soon. There was a time when I was teaching microbiology at Jomo Kenyatta University, and I joked with students and tried to explain to them how to come up with some of these biological weapons. And I'm afraid that some of them picked up that cue and they started practicing this kind of dangerous thing. So even as we teach, we should be very careful of what we tell our students. COVID-19 has given us a taste of what to expect in future. HIV and Ebola are more testimonies of this. If you read the book entitled The Future Plague, you may start to understand what I mean by all these things and why I think there is a lot of fear and we should be very afraid. Presently, the war in Ukraine is trying to be managed by the superpowers so that it does not escalate into the Third World War, because we already know that there are already two opposing sides and any mistake can push us to a catastrophe. The UN Convention on Biological Weapons is very clear in their terms of reference. Even the Cartagena Protocol 1540 is very explicit in their requirements. This is why this workshop for the youth on biosecurity is very appropriate and, I must repeat, very important. Biotechnology and these biological weapons are things that can readily be availed. Genetic engineering is capable of mobilizing genes to impact any desired effect. Imagine a situation where a lethal gene is combined with morbidity. What you get is death morbidity. Read the book, The Brave New World, and you will understand all these things. Allow me to also address genetic engineering to address food security. It is true we can achieve some food security if we embrace genetic engineering, but if we do it without responsibility, we will end up with food insecurity. We will feed well, but with consequences. Look at the many publications on the National Biological Safety Authority and the National Biosafety Appeals Board. They address all these fears, especially for us Kenyans who already know what these bodies are doing. Finally, I want to thank NACOSTI and the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs for organizing this workshop, and all of you youth who have taken your time to attend the workshop. I want to just repeat to the Kenyans that in 2018, the government organized for a get-together between scientists and members of parliament, and we spent 5 days at Hotel Intercontinental discussing biosafety and biosecurity and weapons of biological destruction. And from that time, the universities were asked to go and come up with curricula so that our youth can be trained in biosecurity and biosafety. We at Kenyatta University already developed that curriculum. It is going through vetting through the Commission for University Education, and we will soon be able to mount courses in biosafety and biosecurity, particularly for our undergraduates and for masters. I hope the other universities in Kenya are doing the same. And having said that, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to thank you for inviting us and to say bye. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Professor Okemo. It was a very good end to so many inspiring remarks today, and we'll keep your message that we need the future generation to take on this challenge of biosecurity in the many fields you've highlighted. Thank you very much, everybody. That is the end of our event. But before you leave, we'd like to ask you if you can all turn your video on, as we'd like to take an online family picture, if that's possible. So I encourage you before leaving to turn your camera on, and we'll take some picture. Thank you. I can see that all of you are starting to appear on the screen. I'll leave you a bit more time. Here we go. Okay, I think we have the full screen now. So I'll ask my colleague that to take some screenshot, Wenji and Clara, when you're ready. Okay, I see Clara has taken some screenshot. Thank you, everybody, for your participation today. It was a pleasure interacting with you, and we look forward to seeing your engagement in the different networks and opportunities we've presented to you. And we look forward to engaging further with our Kenyan partners. Thank you very much to NACOSTI for co-organizing this event and gathering so many young people today. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. And
Yeah,
bye-bye
thank
to
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.